The stainless steel icon of 1980s cinema almost never existed. Not just the time machine, but the entire concept behind it was pure accident and controversy. From refrigerators to cocaine busts, from hubcaps to gold-plating disasters, and from presidential speed limits to literal train wrecks, the DeLorean's journey to becoming the most famous movie car in history is filled with bizarre secrets that will blow your mind. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Back to the Future DeLorean DMC-12. Fact 1. Time travel started in a refrigerator. Before the iconic stainless steel DeLorean became synonymous with time travel, Doc Brown's time machine was actually supposed to be built inside a lead-lined refrigerator. In the original script written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the idea was that Doc would drive the refrigerator to a nuclear test site in the Nevada desert, and the atomic blast would provide enough energy to send someone through time. It was a wild concept that fit perfectly with the 1950s atomic age aesthetic they were going for in the story. However, when Steven Spielberg came on board as executive producer, he immediately raised a serious concern that nobody on the creative team had considered. Spielberg pointed out that if they showed a kid climbing into a refrigerator and successfully time traveling, children all across America might try to recreate the experiment by locking themselves inside their family's kitchen refrigerator. This was a legitimate safety hazard because refrigerators in the 1980s still posed suffocation risks to children, and there had been tragic incidents throughout the decades of kids getting trapped inside abandoned fridges. Spielberg's intervention forced the writers to completely rethink their time machine concept, and they eventually landed on using a car instead, which would need to reach a specific speed of 88 miles per hour to activate the flux capacitor. This change not only solved the safety concern, but also created one of the most thrilling and memorable elements of the entire film, turning every time travel sequence into an exciting race against the clock. The refrigerator concept was completely abandoned, and the DeLorean DMC-12 was chosen shortly after, changing cinema history forever. Fact 2. Ford offered $75,000 for a Mustang swap. Once the creative team decided that Doc Brown's time machine would be a car rather than a refrigerator, they opened themselves up to a fascinating behind-the-scenes battle with major automotive manufacturers who wanted their vehicles featured in what was expected to be a major summer blockbuster. Ford Motor Company, recognizing the marketing potential of having their vehicle become the star of a time travel movie, approached the producers with an aggressive product placement offer of $75,000 if they would replace the DeLorean with a Ford Mustang. This was a substantial amount of money for a film production in the mid-1980s, and some studios might have jumped at the opportunity to offset their budget costs. However, co-writer and producer Bob Gale had a very different reaction to Ford's generous offer. Gale famously told Ford representatives that Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang, making it abundantly clear that the Mustang was entirely wrong for the character and the story they were trying to tell. The creative team understood that Doc Brown needed to drive something unconventional, something that looked futuristic and slightly bizarre, something that matched his eccentric inventor personality. A Mustang, despite being an iconic American muscle car, was far too ordinary and mainstream for a character who built a time machine out of a failed automotive experiment. The DeLorean, with its gull-wing doors and unpainted stainless steel body, looked like it had already arrived from the future, making it the perfect choice for the film. Gale's passionate defense of the DeLorean meant that Ford's money was rejected outright, and the movie kept the car that would eventually become one of the most recognizable vehicles in cinema history. Fact 3. The nuclear reactor is a Dodge hubcap. When production designer Lawrence Paul and his team were tasked with creating the iconic time machine from a standard DeLorean DMC-12, they had a limited budget and needed to make the car look futuristic and scientifically complex using whatever materials they could find. One of the most recognizable elements they added to the DeLorean was the plutonium chamber mounted on the back of the car, which glows ominously and serves as the nuclear reactor that powers the flux capacitor. What looks like an incredibly sophisticated piece of fictional nuclear technology was actually built using the most unexpected everyday parts. The main body of the plutonium chamber that sits prominently on the rear of the time machine was constructed from a hubcap taken from a 1967 to 1969 Dodge Polara, an ordinary American sedan from the late 60s. The prop makers combined this vintage hubcap with various parts scavenged from a helicopter gas turbine engine, along with other mechanical odds and ends they found in junkyards and aerospace surplus stores. This creative technique is called kit bashing in the movie industry, where prop builders assemble new objects by combining parts from completely unrelated items to create something that looks authentic and functional on screen. The brilliance of using a Dodge hubcap for a nuclear reactor is that nobody in the audience would ever recognize it, because it's taken completely out of its normal context and surrounded by other mechanical components that disguise its true origin. The plutonium chamber became one of the most iconic elements of the time machine's design, and generations of fans have studied its details without ever realizing they were looking at a car part that might have been sitting in their grandfather's garage. Fact 4. Jimmy Carter almost ruined everything. The dramatic moment when Marty McFly pushes the DeLorean to 88 miles per hour to activate the flux capacitor is one of the most thrilling sequences in Back to the Future. But it almost never happened because of an obscure federal regulation that was passed 6 years before the movie was filmed. In 1979, during President Jimmy Carter's administration, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration implemented a law requiring that all automobile speedometers manufactured for vehicles in the United States could not display speeds higher than 85 miles per hour. The reasoning behind this regulation was that limiting speedometer readings would discourage drivers from speeding and improve highway safety during the energy crisis when lower speeds also improved fuel economy. This law created a massive problem for the Back to the Future production team because their entire time travel concept revolved around the car reaching 88 miles per hour, which was 3 miles per hour beyond what any legal speedometer would show. The DeLorean DMC-12, like all cars produced between 1981 and 1982, came factory-equipped with speedometers that maxed out at exactly 85 miles per hour, making it impossible to film the dramatic shots of the speedometer needle climbing past 88. To solve this problem, the production team had to commission custom speedometers that were specially modified to display speeds up to 95 miles per hour, allowing them to film the close-up shots of the speedometer that are shown multiple times throughout the movie. Without these custom gauges, one of the most iconic visual elements of the film would have been impossible to capture on screen. Fact 5. Only 3 gold DeLoreans were made. In 1980, when the DeLorean Motor Company was desperately trying to generate buzz and sales for their struggling luxury sports car, they partnered with American Express to create what they believed would be an irresistible limited edition vehicle for wealthy collectors. The plan was to produce 100 gold-plated DeLorean DMC-12s that would be offered exclusively to American Express Gold Card holders at a premium price of $85,000 each, which was more than 3 times the cost of a standard DeLorean. These weren't simply gold-colored cars with metallic paint. They were supposed to feature genuine 24-karat gold electroplating applied over the stainless steel body panels, creating what the company marketed as the ultimate luxury vehicle that combined futuristic styling with precious metal opulence. American Express promoted this exclusive offer heavily in their marketing materials, and DeLorean was counting on wealthy collectors and celebrities to line up for the opportunity to own such a unique and extravagant automobile. However, the promotion turned into an absolute disaster when only 2 customers actually placed orders for the gold-plated DeLoreans. The lack of interest was devastating to both companies, and it highlighted how the DeLorean was already struggling to find buyers even among the wealthy elite who could easily afford the inflated price tag. Due to the catastrophic failure of the promotion, only 3 gold-plated DeLoreans were ever actually produced, the 2 that were sold to customers and 1 prototype that was used for promotional purposes. These 3 gold DeLoreans have become incredibly rare collector's items today, far more valuable than anyone could have imagined when the promotion failed so spectacularly 4 decades ago, proving that sometimes the biggest failures become the most sought-after treasures. Fact 6. Hundreds of black car training dummies existed. When the DeLorean Motor Company opened its manufacturing facility in Dunmurry, Northern Ireland in 1981, they faced a significant challenge that most people never knew about. The company had hired hundreds of workers who had little to no experience building automobiles, particularly a car as unique and unconventional as the DeLorean DMC-12 with its distinctive stainless steel body panels and complex gull-wing door mechanisms. To train these inexperienced workers without wasting expensive stainless steel panels and specialized parts, the company came up with a practical solution that resulted in some of the strangest DeLoreans ever produced. They manufactured several hundred training vehicles that were built with black fiberglass body panels instead of the signature brushed stainless steel that made the DeLorean so recognizable. These training cars, which workers at the factory nicknamed black cars or mules, were used exclusively on the assembly line to teach workers how to properly install components, align body panels, and assemble the various mechanical systems without the pressure of working on cars that would actually be sold to customers. The black fiberglass was much cheaper than stainless steel and could be easily replaced if workers made mistakes during the learning process. These black DeLoreans were never intended to be sold to the public, and they never received vehicle identification numbers or any official documentation that would allow them to be registered for street use. After serving their purpose as training tools, most of these black cars were either dismantled for parts or scrapped entirely. However, a few of these unusual black DeLoreans reportedly survived over the decades, and some have appeared at car shows and in private collections, representing a bizarre chapter in DeLorean history that most fans of Back to the Future never knew existed. Fact 7. The stainless steel shows. Every fingerprint, one of the most distinctive features of the DeLorean DMC-12, is its unpainted body made from brushed 304 grade stainless steel panels, which gave the car a futuristic appearance that was unlike anything else on the road in the early 1980s. However, this signature design element that made the DeLorean so visually striking also created a nightmare for both the factory workers who assembled the cars and the owners who purchased them. The stainless steel body panels showed absolutely every fingerprint, smudge, scratch, and mark that came into contact with the surface, and these blemishes would quickly oxidize and turn into dark blotches that were nearly impossible to remove without specialized cleaning products and techniques. Factory workers had to wear cotton gloves whenever they handled the body panels during assembly, because even the natural oils from human skin would leave permanent marks on the steel that would darken over time. Despite these precautions, it was virtually impossible to deliver a DeLorean that didn't already have some degree of staining and discoloration from the manufacturing process. Owners discovered that washing their DeLorean required special stainless steel cleaners and careful techniques, because standard car wash soap and water would leave streaks and spots that made the car look dirty even when it was clean. The irony of the stainless steel body was that while it made every DeLorean look identical and uniform from a distance, up-close inspection revealed that each car had its own unique pattern of marks, scratches, and discoloration that told the story of how it had been handled and maintained over the years. This beautiful but impractical design choice perfectly symbolized the DeLorean itself, a car that looked like it came from the future but was plagued by real-world problems. Fact 8. The B car was actually destroyed by a train. In the climactic final scene of Back to the Future, Part 3, Doc Brown's time machine is obliterated when a locomotive smashes into it at a railroad crossing, creating one of the most dramatic and definitive endings to the DeLorean's journey through the trilogy. What many fans assume was movie magic using miniatures, special effects, or a fake prop car was actually the complete destruction of a real DeLorean that had been used throughout the filming of all three movies. The production team used three main DeLoreans during filming, designated as the A car, B car, and C car, each modified for different purposes and types of shots. The B car was the primary stunt vehicle that appeared in all the action sequences, chase scenes, and dangerous stunts throughout the trilogy, making it the DeLorean that audiences saw most often when the car was actually moving at high speeds or performing difficult maneuvers. For the train destruction scene at the end of Part 3, the filmmakers decided that using miniatures or visual effects wouldn't look convincing enough for such an important moment, so they made the decision to actually destroy the real B-car stunt vehicle. They positioned the DeLorean on the railroad tracks and filmed a real locomotive plowing into it at speed, genuinely demolishing the car in a single take that was both spectacular and permanent. This was a significant sacrifice because the B-car had been with the production through years of filming across 3 movies, and it represented thousands of dollars worth of vehicle and custom modifications. However, the authenticity of watching a real car get destroyed by a real train created a visceral impact that no special effect could match, giving the scene an emotional weight that perfectly closed out the time machine story. Fact 9. The C-car had its nose cut off. When director Robert Zemeckis and cinematographer Dean Cundey were planning how to film the scenes inside the DeLorean time machine, they quickly discovered a problem that would plague the entire production. The DeLorean DMC-12 had an extremely cramped interior with very little space for actors to move around, and the combination of the low roofline, the wide door sills from the gull-wing doors, and the dashboard design made it virtually impossible to position a standard 35mm Panaflex camera inside the car to capture proper footage of the actors. The cameras used in Hollywood productions during the 1980s were large, heavy pieces of equipment that required significant clearance and positioning to get the right angles and lighting. After numerous attempts to film inside an intact DeLorean proved unsuccessful, the production team made the radical decision to completely modify one of their 3 main picture cars specifically for interior filming. The C-car had its entire front end removed, including the hood, front bumper, and forward body panels, and the rear section was also cut away, essentially turning the DeLorean into an open shell that could accommodate the massive camera equipment while still maintaining the appearance of an intact car from certain angles. This extensively modified C-car allowed cinematographers to capture all the crucial interior shots of Marty and Doc inside the time machine, showing their reactions and interactions during the time travel sequences that are so essential to the storytelling. Without this drastic modification, most of the iconic interior scenes that audiences remember from the film would have been impossible to shoot, and the production would have been forced to rely on much less effective techniques like obvious rear projection or unconvincing close-ups. Fact 10. John DeLorean was on trial. During filming, when Back to the Future began principal photography in 1984, the production team was using a car whose creator was simultaneously becoming one of the most notorious figures in American criminal justice news. John DeLorean, the charismatic former General Motors executive who founded the DeLorean Motor Company, had been arrested in October of 1982 in a dramatic FBI sting operation where he was caught on videotape, allegedly participating in a cocaine trafficking deal involving millions of dollars worth of drugs. The timing of his arrest came just months after his car company had collapsed into bankruptcy, and prosecutors claimed that DeLorean had desperately turned to drug smuggling to raise money to save his failing business. Throughout 1984, while Back to the Future was being filmed, John DeLorean's trial was headline news across America, with television broadcasts showing the courtroom proceedings and newspapers printing daily updates about the sensational case. This created a bizarre situation where the production was featuring a car whose manufacturer was on trial for cocaine trafficking, making the DeLorean seem edgy, dangerous, and counterculture in a way that actually fit perfectly with the rebellious spirit of the film. The publicity surrounding the trial kept the DeLorean name in the news and probably helped audiences remember the unusual car when the movie was released. In August of 1984, just as Back to the Future was finishing filming, John DeLorean was acquitted of all charges when the jury accepted his defense that he had been entrapped by overzealous FBI agents and an informant who had manipulated him into participating in the drug deal. Despite his acquittal, the scandal permanently destroyed what remained of his reputation and ensured that the DeLorean Motor Company would never be resurrected. Fact 11. The car was too slow to reach 88 miles per hour easily. The dramatic scenes in Back to the Future, where Marty McFly desperately pushes the DeLorean to reach 88 miles per hour in order to activate the flux capacitor, create intense excitement and tension throughout the film. But the reality was that the DeLorean DMC-12 was one of the most underpowered sports cars of its era and genuinely struggled to reach those speeds during filming. The DeLorean was equipped with a French-made PRV V6 engine that produced only 130 horsepower, which was embarrassingly weak for a car that looked so exotic and futuristic. To put this in perspective, a standard Honda Accord from the same era had nearly as much horsepower as the supposedly high-performance DeLorean. The car's 0 to 60 acceleration time was over 10 seconds, making it slower than most family sedans, and its top speed was only around 110 miles per hour under ideal conditions. During filming, stunt drivers found it genuinely difficult to get the heavy stainless steel car up to 88 miles per hour quickly enough to meet the timing requirements of various chase scenes and action sequences. The car's poor performance became such an issue that the filmmakers made the decision to completely replace the sound of the DeLorean's actual engine in post-production because it sounded weak and unimpressive on film. Instead, they dubbed in audio recordings of a Porsche engine to make the time machine sound more powerful and exciting when it was accelerating toward the crucial 88 mile per hour threshold. This clever sound design trick meant that audiences heard a thrilling, aggressive engine note that had nothing to do with the actual wheezy V6 that was struggling under the DeLorean's hood. Fact 12. Factory workers left cave art inside panels. The workers at the DeLorean Motor Company's factory in Dunmurry, Northern Ireland, developed an unexpected tradition during the car's production run from 1981 to 1982 that has been discovered decades later by mechanics and restoration specialists who work on these vehicles. Factory workers would frequently write their names, dates, messages, jokes, and various graffiti on the inside surfaces of body panels, the underside of the stainless steel exterior, and other hidden areas of the car before the panels were permanently installed during assembly. This practice, which has been nicknamed cave art by DeLorean enthusiasts, turned each car into a kind of time capsule containing hidden messages from the people who built it over 40 years ago. The workers apparently did this because they knew these inscriptions would be completely hidden once the panels were installed and would likely never be seen again unless someone completely disassembled the car decades in the future. Some of the messages were simple signatures with dates, while others included jokes, song lyrics, political statements, or personal notes that reflected what was happening in Northern Ireland during the early 1980s, which was a particularly turbulent time in the region's history. These hidden inscriptions have only been discovered in recent years as more DeLoreans have undergone complete restorations where every body panel is removed and the entire car is disassembled down to its bare frame. Restoration shops have started documenting and photographing these messages whenever they find them, and some owners have been fascinated to learn about the specific person who assembled their particular car 4 decades ago. The cave art represents a human connection between the factory workers and the eventual owners, a reminder that these iconic movie cars were built by real people during a challenging period in manufacturing history. Fact 13. Only the A car still survives intact. Of the 3 primary DeLoreans used during the filming of the Back to the Future trilogy, designated by the production team as the A car, B car, and C car, only one remains in its complete original form today. The A car, which was known as the hero car because it was used for all the close-up beauty shots and scenes where the time machine needed to look perfect on camera, is the sole survivor of the 3 main picture cars. This hero car is now part of the permanent collection at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, California, where it is displayed as one of the most significant movie cars in cinema history and remains one of the museum's most popular exhibits. The fate of the other 2 cars is far less glamorous. The B car, which was the primary stunt vehicle used for all the action sequences and dangerous driving scenes throughout all 3 films, was deliberately destroyed during the filming of the final scene in Back to the Future Part 3, when it was smashed by a real locomotive. The C-car, which had been extensively modified with its front and rear sections removed to accommodate camera equipment for interior filming shots, was left in a partially dismantled state after production wrapped. This heavily modified C-car reportedly deteriorated over the years and may have been scrapped or sold for parts, though some rumors suggest portions of it still exist in private hands. The survival of only the A-car means that when fans see the time machine on display at museums or events, they're looking at the actual vehicle that appeared in the most iconic shots from all three movies, making it an irreplaceable artifact of film history that can never be replicated because the other hero cars no longer exist. Fact 14. A battery post cleaner activates time circuits. The interior of the DeLorean time machine is filled with numerous switches, buttons, gauges, and controls that make the flux capacitor and time travel system look incredibly complex and scientifically advanced. But the production designers created these futuristic controls using the most mundane, everyday objects they could find. One of the most prominent controls inside the time machine is the dramatic handle that Doc Brown and Marty McFly use to activate the time circuits before engaging the flux capacitor. And this crucial component that appears in multiple scenes throughout all three films was actually repurposed from a common automotive tool. The time circuit activation handle was built using a battery post cleaner, which is a simple hand tool that mechanics use to remove corrosion and buildup from car battery terminals. The production design team took this ordinary tool, modified it slightly, mounted it in a prominent position on the time machine's interior console, and turned it into one of the most recognizable controls in the entire vehicle. This perfectly exemplifies the creative problem-solving and resourcefulness that defined the prop-building process for Back to the Future, where designers had to create a believable time machine on a limited budget using whatever materials they could scavenge from hardware stores, junkyards, and surplus suppliers. The genius of using a battery post cleaner is that it already had a mechanical, industrial appearance that fit the aesthetic of Doc Brown's improvised scientific equipment, and it was the perfect size and shape to serve as a dramatic activation lever that characters could grab and pull during tense moments. Nobody in the audience would ever recognize what they were looking at, because the context completely transformed the object's identity, from a simple auto parts store tool into an essential component of time travel technology. Fact 15. The movie came out after the company died. Back to the Future premiered in theaters on July 3, 1985, becoming one of the biggest box office hits of the year and launching the DeLorean DMC-12 into worldwide fame as one of the most recognizable cars in cinema history. However, this incredible success and exposure came far too late to help the struggling company that manufactured the iconic vehicle. The DeLorean Motor Company had filed for bankruptcy in February of 1982 and ceased all production operations, meaning the company had been dead for more than 3 years by the time the movie introduced millions of people to the stainless steel sports car. This tragic timing has led to decades of speculation among automotive historians and DeLorean enthusiasts about how different history might have been if the movie had been released just a few years earlier when the company was still operating. If Back to the Future had come out in 1981 or 1982, when DeLorean was desperately trying to generate sales and convince the public that their unusual car was worth buying, the massive publicity and cultural phenomenon created by the film could have potentially saved the company from bankruptcy. The association with time travel and the positive portrayal of the car as futuristic and cool might have overcome the negative reviews that criticized the DeLorean's poor performance, high price, and quality control problems. Instead, the movie became one of history's greatest examples of ironic timing, where a product became incredibly famous and desirable at exactly the moment when it was no longer possible to buy a new one, creating a permanent gap between the DeLorean's cultural significance and its commercial reality.